So next we have Dale reading excerpts from Where the Mountains Meet the Sea, an upcoming novel, I hear.
This is going to feel really greedy because everything's been really brief and great for the ADHD crowd, and these are chapters from my book, and I may just read one.
Did you say chapters?
Well, I brought two because I couldn't decide which one to
I think you
read.
just answered your own question.
But I'm only going to read one, and then I'll see if people want me to read another one, which is much shorter than the first one.
Start with short. Are they need to be in order?
They're not. They're out of sequence. And in fact, if you want to read what's intended to be the very first chapter of the book, that's on NH Novella. So I decided not to read that one. You can read that yourself if you want to go there.
We have to read ourselves.
So this is out of context, just to give you a little bit of perspective. This is sort of a love story that's based in a just near future society where seasteading actually got some good funding.
Science fiction, right?
Science fiction. Okay, it's actually more fantasy than science fiction.
What's seasteading?
Supernatural. This particular chapter is called Deep Thoughts. I was startled awake by Jeremy whispering in my ear to rouse me. For the longest time, no one else had seemed interested in sleeping. I woke occasionally as the others continued to chat quietly and walk around. Now they were all gone except Jeremy and me. Devin, hey, let's go to the beach. What, now? I asked. Why not? Because it's the middle of the night. Aren't you tired? Now's a good time while we have the water all to ourselves and it's quiet. You have somewhere to be in the morning? I fought my grogginess and slowly got to my feet. You know, the other thing that's weird about this is it's not funny. Everyone's been funny up to now. I fought my grogginess and got slowly to my feet. Jeremy walked past the pool and out the gate. I stopped at the gate to sort through the scattered clothes and find my shorts. Jeremy soon realized he wasn't being followed anymore and turned. Come on, Devin, this is the moment of truth. Don't be afraid, he said. He waited impatiently while I caught up to him. There was a cool breeze coming off the ocean and we were wearing nothing but shorts. I shivered and looking at the frothing waves made me feel even colder. You're about to experience something incredible. Jeremy, with all due respect, you're high. Not so much anymore. Drugs don't last long on us. He took my hand and started leading me to the water. A chill ran up my body when the cold water hit my feet. I winced against the icy water as Jeremy pulled me insistently further until we were about as far as we could go without the waves splashing above our shoulders. Now close your eyes, listen to the sounds of the ocean, and relax. As I tried to comply, Jeremy put his hand on my chest. The soothing sounds of Jeremy's voice and the feeling of his hand on my chest distracted me from the cold. Slow, deep breaths. The cold is nothing more than a sensation. You're warm inside. It won't penetrate. Maybe this was some kind of initiation, but it didn't seem like it. I decided to play along for now. I figured we'd be okay as long as we didn't stay in too long. There was something very exciting about swimming in the ocean in the middle of the night, though it did seem like a familiar scene in about half a dozen cheesy horror movies. Soon the cold really wasn't bothering me like it ought to. We waited out until we were treading water and then some. I had lost track of how far out we were. Now don't be afraid, but there's someone with us. She likes people a lot. She won't hurt you. This woke me up from my mild trance. What are you talking about? She's very affectionate. She'll want to touch you. Just think of her as a big kitty cat. I felt a strong current of water as something big swam by underwater, and I couldn't help crying out, "Holy Mother of God!" I started to swim back the way we came, but Jeremy gripped my arm with a surprising and irresistible strength. The dolphin broke the surface, and there was a snorting sound as it took a breath, followed by some rhythmic clicking sounds. I could only see a vague shape in the dark, just a smooth bulge and a fin, but I recognized the sound and calmed a bit. Okay, relax. Her name's Venus. There's no need to be afraid with her around. It's like having a guard dog. My heart gradually got back down out of my throat, but it was still pounding hard against my chest. It would help a lot if I could see. I was feeling very helpless. I was worried I might startle it if I made any sudden moves, so I held still, moving my limbs just enough to stay afloat. How do you know it's her? I asked. I've known her for years. She hangs out around here a lot. Venus glided over, turned sideways, and rubbed her belly against my back. Her skin was slick and oily. There was something sweet about the motion, and I understood what Jeremy meant. I was reminded of how a cat rubs against your leg and quickly lost any fear of her. She swam around us a few more times and brushed against my legs, my stomach. There were clicks and whistles, and Jeremy seemed to be listening carefully to them. I can tell she likes you a lot. That's a good sign. She's very intuitive. Once again, Jeremy told me to close my eyes and listen to the sounds of the ocean. Once again, Jeremy's hand was on my chest. Jeremy spoke with that calm and rhythmic tone. I felt my heart beat and breathing slowing. What now? When you're ready, she's going to take you on a little dive underwater. Don't swim, just relax and let her do all the work. Conserve your energy and your air. She'll take good care of you. Trust her. So this is the incredible experience she spoke of. You'll see. After a few more moments of feeling my heartbeat, Jeremy must have felt I was ready. He slapped the water a few times. It must have been a signal because Venus immediately appeared between us. He guided my hand to her dorsal fin. He kept his hand on my chest and told me to take a deep breath. As soon as I took a deep breath, Jeremy patted Venus on the head and she dove, pulling me along. I felt her strength as she whipped her body a few times to create momentum and then relaxed. I could tell we were dropping fast by the rate of the pressure building on my skull. Venus was emitting little sounds that had the same effect as Jeremy's voice, calming me. I knew if I panicked, I'd burn through my air a lot faster. Just when I thought I was going to be crushed, she lifted her body upward a little and leveled out. The pain on my skull eased as my body adjusted to the pressure. The clicks and whistles continued like she was trying to talk to me, and I found it amusing. Then something about the pressure and the darkness and the strange underwater ocean sounds muffled my other senses and opened up something else. Like a dream, what happened next would only seem odd later when reflected back upon. For the moment, I forgot I was holding my breath deep underwater. I forgot that Venus wasn't human. It didn't seem odd that she was thinking about things that dolphins shouldn't be concerned with. And it didn't seem odd at all that her thoughts seemed to be swimming around in my head. It wasn't in words and it wasn't even chronological. It was more a non-linear exchange of interrelated ideas. Our souls were naked to each other. I glanced down and saw the whole of my personality imprinted on my inner skin like elaborate tattoos, and I knew she could see it too. She sensed my fear at being in a new place and being unsure of my future. She sensed my newly formed affection for and curiosity of Jeremy. She saw a vast gap between me and my parents, and she understood the ensuing desperation and the abuse I endured for a while from the one I chose to replace my parents' love. Some were more like scars than tattoos. Meanwhile, I sensed an incredible empathy from her. She wanted to comfort me and relieve my pain. The lines on her inner skin weren't nearly as convoluted as mine. There was the innocence of simplicity about her, not unintelligent but unburdened. Then somehow, after digging through the cloud of all my human distractions, she saw something of that innocence in me and showed it to me. "You're free now," she told me. As the pressure let up, I started to regain some coherency, and one of my first rational thoughts was that we seemed to have been under for a very long time. I'd lost track of how long. I needed air and had to fight the urge to inhale. Venus seemed to sense it too because she was pulling me rapidly to the surface. I thought of what Jeremy said and trusted her. I exhaled slowly as we rose, and it helped. Then before I had time to start to panic, we were already breaking the surface, and I took a deep breath. Venus was still swimming quickly along the surface, so I held on. I saw the beach and could just make out Jeremy waist deep in the water off in the distance. She was taking me into shore. She stopped at the point where I could stand and finally let go. And I finally let go. I was still reeling from the bizarre experience and feeling euphoric. I struggled to maintain my balance as I waded through the water to the shore, where I fell on all fours. Jeremy came over and put his hand on my back. He was patient as I waited for the high to fade. Oh my God, I think the pressure made me delirious. I thought she was talking. Jeremy helped me to my feet. The pressure will do that. I told you it would be incredible, better than drugs. I feel something, a rush. It's like I can feel my blood flowing in my veins, or like energy is flowing, or I feel really alive. I wrapped my arm around Jeremy's shoulder for support and leaned into him as we started walking back to the house. I had mostly recovered my balance, but saw no need for Jeremy to know that. As we got closer, I could just make out the outline of Richard on the porch in the dark, leaning on the railing and looking out at the sea. I wondered if he'd just woken briefly or if he'd been up there all night. "So what did she say?" asked Jeremy. "What?" It seemed a very odd question. You said you thought she was talking, like in a dream, right?" "Yeah, something like that, I guess." "So what did she say in the dream?" "Well, I'm sure I imagined it. It's hard to describe most of it. But in the dream, she did say something about me being free now. From what, I don't know." "Then my instincts were right. You are one of us." So I've already been like way up longer than anybody else up here, but if you want, I do have the other chapter that I had trouble deciding between that's shorter than this one, maybe half to 2/3 as long as this one.
You did. Yes. Number 9.
Yeah,
Bring it back
continue.
later. Okay.